right now.
Great.
Welcome everyone to 52 Living Ideas. Tonight is the future of leadership, leading change with Jeff Nugent. This is going to be one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite meetups, but this is one of my favorite meetups within this series. So I'm really looking forward to this one. So I'll hand it off to Jeff and he can get us started.
Thank you, everyone, for joining in. This is going to be a little bit of a culminating session. This is the 7th in the series, and it's the last one in this series. And it's not culminating in the sense that we're going to go back through the things we've done. It's that the subject of leading change is in some ways the culmination of everything that we have done about leadership. And what we're going to do is a subset of something that generally takes a day and a half to 2 days to do. And we're going to do some parts of it. Some of you may know that over the last several decades, most of the leadership programs that I've done for folks have been at least 3 days long, and for the most part, 5 days long, and almost always more than one for folks, so that they could actually think about how they might use what they gained, and then talk that over with some of their colleagues, some of their peers, go do it, and then come back and tell the story about how it went and what they learned from that. And so I've changed up what we're going to do a little bit here so that you actually have the opportunity to adopt some of the things that we're going to actually do together, if you wish, in teams that you're a part of or that you lead, or over the holidays. No, just kidding. Don't try this at home. But I think you might find this intriguing and potentially useful, and we will reflect on that a little bit at the end with your permission. So ready, set, go. Let me pick the right one here. I'm pretty sure this is it. Okay, I'm going to move you all here. Good. It's got the right title. I was looking, I thought I saw a couple of them there to choose, and so intuition won out. All right. So leading change. This is this little picture that I've been showing you at the start here was original artwork that I commissioned for an organization that I was the CEO of for a number of years. And it was meant to convey the renewal and rebuilding of cities. We were mostly in cities, and I really loved it and put it on the front of our brochure. But that organization no longer exists in that form, and so it was available to me to use. And so this is it. So we're going to do just a very quick review. The fundamental question we're addressing, and just for a moment revisit growth leadership, its values and mindset and practice. And then we're going to focus intently on one of the essential responsibilities of leadership. And we'll look at a little 3-minute video on YouTube that will educate us and provoke us in that regard. Then we'll spend some time on the subject of collaborative innovation, because really, in many ways, leading change in the way that I want to convey and share it tonight has to do with co-creating. It's really a process of co-creating the future, and even our intention regarding the future, and what we hope to achieve and how we hope to achieve it, given the choices available to us, which we will also generate. And that's where we're going to do a little case exercise on something that is extremely important and for many folks quite vexing. We'll then visit the 8-step process to leading change by John Kotter, who was one of the leading writers and thought leaders with regard to leading change, and actually wrote the book called Leading Change that was published by the Harvard Business Review and is a wonderful orientation to it. So we'll get to that. And then we'll talk a little bit about ideas that we might want to remember and how we might use them from this session, and close with a wonderful poem by Maya Angelou. So that's where we're headed with this. So remember, this is our fundamental question. In a complex and fast-changing world, how can mature leadership, experienced leadership, where people have really learned from their experience, they've got not just 10, they've got actually 10 years or 20 years of experience and not 1 year 20 times. How can mature leadership help us to authentically, ethically, inclusively, creatively, and productively keep moving forward together? That's our fundamental question for this series. And it makes sense to keep coming back to it because it's a challenging endeavor. And then this is the core diagram where the entities that we are a part of, no matter what they are, whether it's an organization or a government or a community or a religious institution or a sports team or whatever entity we're part of here, has a vision for what it hopes to achieve, how it hopes to make the world different, and then a particular purpose that answers the question, what are we trying to do and why are we doing it? What do we hope to get from achieving whatever it is that we wish to achieve? And what are our values? What are our principles? What are our virtues that we hold dear and wish to bring to this? And then for any one person or any individual who might find themselves in a leadership role, there is the individual. And of course, there's everybody else. There is a team, there are all the stakeholders, there are all the close stakeholders, and then all the ecosystem and the organization in which the team works. And I want to emphasize this subject of stakeholders, because really a lot of this process is about relating to and serving and partnering with and in every respect engaging all of the folks that we wish to serve in one way or another. Because really anything that anyone starts out to do for others without gaining their input and feedback, and really constant input and feedback, they may very well end up doing to them rather than for them. And so the principle here is to do things with each other, especially those whom we seek to serve. And then this whole orientation to actions that we deliberate and we come up with factors that make sense to us, and we weight them according to their importance. We look at how they're playing out given how situations are changing that are within our control and outside our control. And then our actions are experiments. They very seldom are the one and only thing that will solve whatever problem or seize whatever opportunity we wish to seize. They are experiments, and from them we will learn and iterate and discard and reinvent the things that we will do together. And you see the lines go from the individuals as well as from the teams, that there are things that we are accountable for and really must invite others to hold us accountable for. And there are things that teams are accountable for where the same principle applies. So there's a lot in this little diagram, and I use it quite a bit in the coaching that I do with folks in leadership roles. And we can explore it more at the end if you wish. We'll come back to it. So remember, this is about the future of leadership in civil society, beyond current politics. And if what I'm going to share here is something that you've already done, at the beginning here, let's adopt a beginner's mind and consider and discover ideas and possible practices. We don't need to debate their relative merit. Just consider their uses to us and maybe what they stimulate in our own thinking. And then we will practice continuous curiosity, and as part of the conversation last night, intellectual integrity and intellectual humility, where we will have great respect for diverse perspectives and let that guide our journey. And in the practicing that, we will prize best questions over conclusions, which is really in my orientation to this, all conclusions are tentative until a better one comes along. So with all that in hand, the growth leadership orientation was about searching and finding opportunities in problems. And that leadership itself is really a purposeful and ethical stewardship-oriented process where we are employing the assets of whatever organization or institution or team we're employing. We're being good stewards of the assets here in order to achieve the mission. And that orientation is essential. In fact, there's a possibility that if you only remember one thing from what we've done over these 7 meetups, adopting this stewardship orientation as a leader, as a staff person, as a manager, as a customer, as a lender or investor, as a shareholder, as a consultant, that being a great steward of the assets of the entity in service to the achievement of its mission is really, you just can't go wrong with that. It is in every way honorable and dependable, and you just can't make a mistake with it. It was first given to me by the author of numerous books and somebody who'd worked with hundreds and hundreds of organizations around the world by the name of Peter Brinkerhoff, who has since retired. But he wrote a book called Smart Stewardship, which I reviewed for him, and it is outstanding. So we are individuals, and our own character and trustworthiness and invitation and practice of being accountable with a service orientation, which is really a partnership orientation, as we've seen in the design way, is essential. And then we're in this together with all the stakeholders. And where, yes, people have their own self-interests, but they actually carry with them a more, what I call, enlightened self-interest, where, for example, if we're in a boat together and there's a hole in the boat and you happen to be sitting near the hole in the boat, well, it's in your self-interest to fix that hole, but it's in my interest too. And it's actually in both of our enlightened self-interest. We are joined, we are in this together, and collectively we've got to figure it out and do whatever it takes in order to solve that challenge. So that's something we ended up calling enlightened self-interest. And then last, that this idea of co-creating, where we stay curious about what can be gained from each other's perspectives, and we stay agile, we stay in an experimental mode. Intelligent experimenting, where we are continually learning, is just essential in the growth mindset applied to leadership, and in everything that is necessary to lead change. Which, by the way, if I hadn't mentioned it, can be a tough job. So I was explaining this to somebody the other day, and they said, well, it's really about the people you're with and what your purpose is and what the possibility is for what you might be able to do to serve that purpose, and how do you make progress on it. And we ruminated on that a little bit, that yes, put people first, and yes, be purpose-driven, and yes, see the possibilities and choose wisely and try to keep moving forward, and even making new mistakes or failing forward. And then we kind of stopped and said, okay, what is this? What really is this? And we decided that it's learning. It's learning about each other and what we seek to achieve and what we think it might provide for us, and how we might approach gaining it, and how we get over the inertia, especially when it comes to leading change, which can be a scary thing, and how we build some momentum and then keep moving forward. And the more we thought about it, we thought, from the agrarian to the industrial to the knowledge age, maybe we're moving into a learning age. Maybe that's what this is. And I thought I might ask this question of you. When I say to you, I think maybe we're moving into what we might call the learning age. What does that, what's your first impression? What do you think when I say learning age? What might that mean?
Folks, go ahead and type exclamation point, or
Yeah.
you just actually unmute.
Yeah, there's just a few, just step up. We're just going to do this for a minute. Who's there in the chat?
Craig, would you like to?
Hey, Craig.
Hello. I think that's a great analogy. Where learning age, my perception a couple weeks ago hit me, was the age of sharing.
I like that.
I like that as well.
Thank
Julie.
you.
Julie, followed by Jody, and then Ambika.
I think of a population that has become more open and curious and
Absolutely.
respectful, appreciative of other views.
I have learned the hard way that people who significantly disagree with me usually know something that I don't know.
So Jyoti, followed by Ambika.
Julie said it all, but I will add what Julie said to it: flexibility. Just remain open and flexible to new learning. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Ambika.
So actually, I feel we are at the time to unlearn. Because we've been stuck in the same old for a very long time, as a result maybe of colonization and breakup of society, so that we don't have any civilization left today. We're at the time of unlearning, so we can recreate with a different set of values and a different set of perception and eyes.
Ambika, I think that's beautiful. And there's a whole approach to there's a lot of thought with regard to trying to create new cultures in societies or in organizations or what it might be, that actually has as one of its early requirements exactly what you said. Answering the question, what do we need to unlearn that we've been stuck in terms of how we think of things and what we do? Because to learn anything new, it generally means we're going to be replacing something that we have done before and coming up with something that we want to try out at the very least, that we think might be much better. And it may have been always there available for us to choose, but it's kind of like they say about used cars. It's new. If it's new to us, it's new.
I'm sorry, that siren was a really good call. It was just the right warning we needed.
I live in the middle of Midtown Manhattan. There's a lot of sirens.
So next we have Becky. Great comments, by the way.
I think moving into the learning age is really like bringing down the limitations that are in the way of people learning. Whereas like in the past, you're physically restricted to your community because that they were the people you interacted with. So there your learning was based off of the culture and people who are like you socioeconomically. And then with internet coming into play, you can communicate with anyone in different countries. So your physical barrier is no longer a limitation for you to learn about different cultures and all that, but also financially, like you're going to college costs money, but there's so many ways to learn online now, that there are free courses, there are ways you can audit, you can get certifications, all those, the cost to learning is no longer there neither. And I think also traditional paths of education credentials are no longer needed, because you look at the boom with technology and like startups, anyone can go into a startup and create their own business. You get credibility through experience and just through merit. And so that's another way that I see learning is possible. So with technology, we've really been able to bring down a lot of these limitations.
Becky, thank you so much for that. And I think this evening is now done. I think that was basically everything that needs to be said. That was so good.
It
Along
was.
with, of course, Ambika reminding us that we have to unlearn the other things. But that's terrific. Thank you so much, Becky. That's very powerful. And it is remarkable how many spheres it actually includes.
So we have Lisa, followed by Ambika again, followed by Jenny.
Collectively understanding and moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than individually.
Thank you. It's in a way, it's always both and, isn't it? You know, we're always with ourselves, but we are never the only people on the earth. You know, imagine if it was just you, Lisa, you know, on the earth, it might not be as interesting a place. And
Right.
So it's always both. It's always 100% both.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So moving forward, it's a collective understanding. Maybe
It
if
is.
you're just looking at single as one person, it's harder to make it forward, but collectively we can move forward together.
Yeah. And I think that moving forward together it allows us to both achieve, you know, to dare to do mighty things that are huge and things that we could never achieve as an individual. And they are then, in addition, a little more complex because of all of us in it. Richer because of all of our diverse skills and knowledge and abilities and experience, but nonetheless, you know, a bit more challenging.
It's more rewarding, and it's not mediocre. It has an excellence to it if we collectively pull together rather than one.
It is. And, you know, one of the interesting things that, like I'm involved with people who are coaching folks around the world, and they're moving from coaching individuals to coaching teams. And one person said, well, is it a little bit like you have all these different individuals, and so it's just like coaching a group of individuals? And as we all explored it, we said, you know, it's not. That a team, you know, a group, an interdependent, gathering of folks it's like it's an organism itself. It has its own soul. It has its own way of thinking. It has its own things it needs to unlearn as a culture and as a group. It has its own networks, and so it's a living thing, and in and of itself. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind, that moving forward together, and this idea of really being together, while it has some of the qualities of changing as an individual, it's got a life of its own. And anyway,
I like, for an example, when there's a catastrophe in a community, everybody comes together, and that's what I see as a team pulling together on a consistent basis. And after that catastrophe, you go your separate ways. You go, that was beautiful. So kind of.
Well, you know, and it's teams, it's organizations, it's companies, and it's even nations, and occasionally it's the world. And that's a very powerful thought. That what are the things, what are the experiences that might draw us together to make that kind of magic, because we need it today.
So next I have, we'll go to Jenny and then followed by Ambika.
Great. And then we'll move forward.
Oh, okay. Is it possible to unlearn a specific thing and learn something else? This is my quest, my specific quest. Unlearn consumerism and learn environmentalism and save the ocean fish in the world. Could I make a specific statement like that? Is it possible to do that in this meeting here?
Yeah. Well, you know, Jenny, my personal experience is that I have not actually unlearned anything until I've successfully replaced it with something else. That I can't just stop most of the time. I actually need to do something different that, in my mind, for another reason, is better. And so I think that is kind of that you were sort of replacing one purpose with another. You know, one dream, one vision, one set of values, one way of being, one way of thinking, one way of being oriented with each other, an entire economy, much less the consideration of the world as a whole. So what you're suggesting is adopting a whole new mindset and worldview. And I think that we're in that. I think that is
and I'd like for
age.
more people to follow me or go with me on that. And that's my quest these days. I'm constantly making that little suggestion to people. Let's not be consumerists. Let's just be environmentalists here.
Well, I think you're going to love the rest of this session. Okay, should we move on, or we have got a couple more folks who we haven't yet
Let's
spoken?
let Ambika go. And
Okay,
then we'll go
Ambika, you get the closing word there.
No, so much has been said, and let me first reflect on what Jeannie just said, just because it's so new. Even if we go to ecological thinking, we are still going to consume something, because we've been consumers since we were born, you know. So we can do, Jeff, what is called a 21-day detox of ideas as well, and adopt something new. But what I wanted to say before then was the unlearning, because yesterday I raised a question, and that one phrase was dropped, and that is, how do we develop false beliefs? Because we do, and that is when they become ideologies, and ideologies divide. And that's the big problem we are facing. We have been for the last 500 years, it intensified in the last 3 years, as you know. So that's what I think we need to do, is identify our false beliefs, which become coded and become systems, and then we believe them even though they're false. And I think that is also, the misinformation is also leading to mental illness. That's what I've come to see, you know, just seeing kids in my classes. But in addition to that, a team must be built of unique individuals, not same, because then it's a flat tire. And then while technology gives us access to a lot, it has also affected human spirit and soul. People are lost in it. And that's where we need to use technology rather than become slaves to the technology.
Right.
And all of these things we need to unlearn, because these habits have been pushed on us in the last 20 years. You know, it's like, oh, let's give them one more gadget. And if you look online, there's so many little gadgets we don't need, because they're cheap to produce them overseas. So we need a complete revolutionary thinking today. And, you know, what if in 21 days, all of us have created something different? What do you think?
All right, you're on. Day one.
On, not just me, we are on. And Jenny, what do you want to create? I'm with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambika.
Terrific. starting a movement.
No, just being ourselves.
Sounds good to me.
We'll try.
Okay, so next slide. So we're going to watch a little video here, and that sort of interesting, isn't it, Joe, to watch this after that wonderful conversation, isn't it?
It's going to be very interesting.
I can't wait to see
everybody. I can't wait to see everybody's reaction to it. I really can't.
And so as you're watching this little video, I hope you haven't seen it, but it's fairly famous, but I'm hoping maybe you haven't seen it. I'd actually like you to reflect on your answer to this question. What given this video, what's one of the most essential responsibilities of every person who finds themselves in a leadership role? One of the most essential responsibilities. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And let's see here. Oh, here it is. Well, I thought I had it all ready to go. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Maybe it wants us all to dance.
Here it is.
Are you guys seeing anything?
No, Jeff.
Okay. Okay. I was making sure.
Yeah, no, Jeff, are you?
I'm not seeing any video. Is something going on?
Oh, okay.
Oh, you're not, Jeff. You thought you were playing it. I thought we were getting it together. Sorry.
Just a second here. Are you all you hearing sound, but not the video?
We're not even hearing any sound. No, so nothing.
Let me come back. Were you all not seeing the video?
We're not seeing the video or hearing it.
All right, let's try this. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, you can hear me okay?
Yeah, but
okay.
Not seeing the video.
Okay, so I just need to cue this thing up again and go there.
Now I can't hear it. Oh, wow. It's been playing for a few minutes.
Okay, so you're looking at this YouTube now with it, we're all looking at it?
Yes. If you
Great.
vote.
So
There's a
I'll
separate
start it.
button for turning on sharing sound as well as sharing video. I don't know.
Yeah, we might have to turn on sharing sound. Mike, do you know where that it is? Is that under audio settings?
Joe, are folks not seeing, are you all not?
They're seeing the video now, but they're not hearing it.
Hmm,
Let me see, show media option originals.
Right-hand corner, there's an operation called more, a button called more.
yes, I see it.
Hit that and see if it says share sound.
Share computer sound?
Yeah,
Got it.
you found it?
I do.
Well, that's your secret. It'll work now. You gotta hit in the left-hand corner, you gotta hit the start the movie. The little
Got it.
positive
Okay,
triangle.
so. So let's try it one more time.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is overglorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
Now you know how this flash mob in Los Angeles went shopping at Nordstrom.
So did the video come through and the sound? Was it all right? You could
Yeah, I
see
can-
it. Okay, great. I wasn't really sure because And thanks for the technical assistance there, Mike.
It's part
So-
of my job description.
Okay, so what's something that we might choose to learn from this video that would be as useful as possible in with regard to the subjects we're addressing, and be as imaginative as you wish.
Dance shirtless.
What else?
Yeah, be yourself. Absolutely authentic.
Julie, why don't you go ahead and unmute, share.
Be passionate about whatever it is that you're moving towards.
Great. Who else?
Lisa, go ahead.
Stand alone, look ridiculous.
Jyoti. You didn't unmute.
Oh, sorry. I said, don't feel intimidated. Just do what you can do and have your own self together.
Great.
Mike, take as
Reminds
long as
me
you
of,
want.
Reminds me of Alice's Restaurant, that song. And what you gotta do is just is pick a subject that moves in the uphill or downhill in the direction of the crowd, and then nudge the crowd in that direction. And that's what Alice's Restaurant did, and that's what there's a book on how to do it called Nudge by what's that guy's name? Cash
Sunstein.
And so we saw several things of that nature when he developed his followers. He welcomed them in actively. Show me 10 who are stout-hearted men, and I'll soon show you 10,000 more. I think.
Terrific.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. So we have Julie again, then followed by Jody.
Great.
Rather than conform, as we're brought up to do, bask and celebrate and honor your uniqueness and oddities, and it's contagious.
Thanks.
Jody, followed by Craig. You can
Yeah,
stop sharing.
the leader has to be patient because sometimes the followers it takes them time to pull up their guts to do what the leader is doing. So just be patient.
Craig.
I'm more curious. Well, I was always the nut, and I never figured out why they followed me. Any insight onto that? Why in the world they would jump off the cliff right behind me?
Well, you were going somewhere they wanted to go too. So those are all terrific. I'd like to offer you my take on it. So I think that one of the essential responsibilities of every leader is to grow more leaders. And that the only way you can successfully grow more leaders is to become a fantastic follower, is to become somebody who is constantly inviting and engaging and supporting and coaching and reflecting with and just exploring new frontiers as other folks step up into a leadership role, given the situation, their expertise, their experience, their network, their passion, their vision, and that really the strongest teams that I've ever seen were situational. in their approaches to leadership, where people got not only the opportunity, but the invitation to step up into roles that made sense for them and to them, that then they could, run that leg, of the baton race before they might hand it off to somebody else, or possibly, to extend the metaphor, really do it together in partnership with all of us. And I think this is a really missed thing, that there's a great power in folks who are in leadership roles, devoting themselves to actually growing not only themselves, but also others. And if everybody's focused on that, it's amazing the creativity that comes in, even the critical thinking that comes in, the invention. So that's what I think here. And so if I was, when I look at what happened there, in some ways it was a growing more leaders experiment. And that's among the things, along with all the great things that you all said, that might be worth noticing. So leadership's not just one person's job. It really does belong to all of us, as Lisa was saying, moving forward together. And every one of us can and will lead, and follow, depending on various situations. And we are all stewards of the assets of whatever entity we're part of, to help it achieve its mission. And we're all builders and maintainers of our growth partnership and mindset and culture. And we're all responsible for contributing everything we can in every situation, which is what Ambika, I hear you inviting us into as well, and Jenny. And we're all accountable for the outcomes, including candidly and fully sharing whatever perspectives or ideas that we have, and all participating in figuring out what makes the most sense to do. And then, of course, we're all responsible for leading ourselves as well as each other. And so this idea that we're all in this together, I think, is a very powerful approach to remember tonight's subject, to leading change. It's not one person's job. It's something that we all are responsible for committing to and engaging in and being accountable for, and recognizing each other's gifts and talents and knowledge and experience and tools that we can all bring to the endeavor. And my experience was, where that doesn't happen, we don't really get anywhere. We get stuck. And when we can really do these things together, we have the chance to do things that we would have never been able to achieve just on our own. So I want to tell you a little story. There's a deli in Ann Arbor.
Jeff, do you want to pull up the slides, actually?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Do you want to pull up the slides? We're only seeing the...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so...
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I apologize.
No worries. So I think I stop sharing that and then share screen and go to, I got it. There it is. Is it there now?
There, it's there now.
Great. So what you all see is I was working off this.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt.
No worries.
It was such a like a balance that I had to strike.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. I'm sorry, everyone.
I'm reading it and I'm like, do I want to do it?
No worries. So this orientation of being stewards and builders and maintainers and in a partnership with each other, where we're all responsible, accountable for leading ourselves and each other. It's really, we're all in this together. And so I want to tell you just a little story here with regard to collective, collaborative thinking. If you ever get the chance, and you find yourself in Ann Arbor, Michigan, I highly recommend that you make a stop to Zingerman's Deli. And really, just about anybody you would ask in Ann Arbor where it is, they'd be able to point you there. It's a famous place. And you can see all the different kinds of foods they have there, and they actually keep it fairly low priced. So the students at the University of Michigan and everybody can afford to be there. And back about 20 years ago or so, Paul and Ari were facing some increased prices in their food. And they were known for really big servings of food, big sandwiches and everything else, and reasonable prices and paying their people well. This is really, in some ways, a social enterprise before the term was coined. But they were going to have trouble doing all those things, given the rise in their costs. And so they shut down the restaurant for I think it was a morning, and just wanted to talk with everybody. They brought everybody in to say, here's the situation, and we really need the best ideas from every single person here, whatever you got. And so everybody got their chance to contribute whatever they could, and they were really kind of struggling with it. And finally, just about pretty much everybody had spoken, but one of the founders here noticed that the guy in the back, who I think his name was Ricky, had not spoken, and he is the dishwasher. He's the lead dishwasher in the restaurant. And so they said, Ricky, we haven't heard from you. And Ricky said, well, I just wash the dishes. What could I possibly offer? And they said, listen, we need to hear from everybody. We need to, you have a unique perspective here. So Ricky said, well, all right. He says, we throw away a lot of French fries. I'm the person who scrapes all that stuff into the, into the compost or into the trash. And we throw away a lot of French fries. I wonder if maybe we could not serve so much. And so everybody kind of thought about it for a little while, and they came up with this idea that they were going to start serving half as many French fries. But anybody who wanted more French fries, all they had to do was request it. And there'd be an open window there, and anybody could get as many French fries as they want. And they even advertised it as, you can have all the French fries you want. But they were serving fewer. And over the next year, they found that they only served just a little bit more than half, close to, not even 2/3 of all the French fries that they normally served. And that price difference really helped them to maintain everything that they wished to preserve. And so the point of that was that every single person's vantage point and perspective and ideas, even if they don't know fully what the significance of that might be towards either imagining an opportunity and seizing it or solving a problem, we really need to hear from everyone. And it's one of the most wonderful stories that I've ever heard in that regard, really on the subject of collaborative innovation. So collaborative innovation is really based on the principle that there is no one of us who could possibly be as smart as more of us, and that stakeholder input and feedback are essential, and they are continuing aspects of everything that we're trying to do. And that true collaboration really is co-creating solutions and opportunities, what we're going to do, our reflection, what we learn from it. And with regard to the fundamental principles of appreciating diversity and creating and sustaining equity and organizing and really depending upon full inclusion of everyone's participation and ideas and vantage points and perspectives, and that it really co-creating is a very, very powerful idea. And if you ever want to look it up, Judith Glaser, who wrote the book Conversational Intelligence, formed an organization, kind of an approach called Getting to We. And it's available online, and it's kind of a movement, and it's a very creative orientation to this idea of co-creating. So the little case exercise we're going to do on the process of collaborative innovation. And this is something that I've used with a lot of folks as an orientation to things that we then did together on really tough topics, but we want to give you a little taste of this, a little doing it together, first of all, and it will involve us going into 2 different breakout rooms for just a few minutes, and then coming back together. And Joe and I will join those breakout groups because we'll have an additional instruction for folks when you get about 3/4 of the way through the process. So here's something that's really happening, that as employees are returning to work, at least for a few days per week, that people are bringing food and they're storing it in the office refrigerator as they did before the pandemic. And of course, they're leaving that food in the refrigerator for too long. And sometimes it spoils. And that's really bad, but nobody really wants to throw away somebody else's food. And so it's really sort of a, like, what do we do about this? So in addition, in the aggregate, the refrigerator's not big enough for everyone's food being left there, even in this hybrid work situation where people are only there a couple of days a week, and especially when it's, when people are leaving it there. So people have different needs and wants and opinions, and occasionally even a few ultimatums with regard to this subject. It tends to generate some fairly strong opinions. And so here's what you're going to be asked to do in your, if we're going to do this first. If you were asked to propose a possible solution, what's a policy or process that you would suggest, that you would offer? And if you could just in one sentence write down that possible solution, 2 sentences at the most, just contribute those in the chat, because we need them written because of what we're going to do next. So just take a second, and if that's not possible, go ahead and say it. Maybe Joe, you could enter it into the chat for folks, but it would be great if you could just write in the 1 sentence or at most 2 sentences that might be a solution. And don't take it too seriously. It's just for the purpose of playing here. Nothing's going to happen to your own refrigerator.
You may leave your food in the fridge for 2 days only.
Okay.
Please remove your food at the end of the day. That was actually going to be one of the suggestions I had.
So 2 days.
Any food left in the refrigerator will be discarded at the end of each day. So that's 2 of the same.
Each day, okay. Craig, did you have one you wanted to contribute that maybe Joe could write into the chat?
Just kind of like when they come in, the first thing is the reminder. You got something in the fridge?
Okay, great. The morning reminder. Mike?
I've used office refrigerators or lab refrigerators, some of which had experiments in them, or glue, or things that needed to be preserved. And the flexible policy, if you do have enough room, everybody has a bag, puts their stuff in a bag with a date, an expiration date. And if you need to have it there for more than 2 days, you can put in that request, and it may or may not be honored.
Great.
So that's been, and also probably a separate area for common condiments, so you didn't have to keep them in your own bag.
So nobody would mistake the condiments for a or the experiments for condiments.
Yeah, that's
great.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe Joe, you could put that in there. Just sort of could you enter it into the chat?
Yeah, I kind of didn't catch exactly what he was saying.
Mike, could you just say it in 1 sentence so that Joe could put it into the chat?
Instead of 2 days, have them pick an expiration date when it will be thrown out.
Great.
And then if that's two, and then you have another variable that you can manage.
Great. Good. So, you know, write an expiration date on your bag or box or whatever. Great. Okay. So, do we have 4 or 5 in there, Joe?
Yes, we do.
Great. So, here's what you need to do. So Joe is going to read through the ones that are there, and he's going to assign each one of them a number. All right. And and so as he reads it, if you would just keep track of, let's say, the 2 ideas that you like the most, and keep track of them by number, because we're going to do a vote. You get 2 votes, but they should be done separately. We're just going to do a little quick vote here in order to pick which one of these things we're going to creatively consider. So just keep track. So Joe's going to read the number, and then we'll come back and we'll just do a quick tally, and then we'll move to the next step.
So number 1 will be, you may leave your food in the fridge for 2 days only. Number 2 will be, please remove your food at the end of the day. Number 3, any food left in the refrigerator will be discarded at the end of each day. So Julie was just kidding, so I won't go ahead and read hers. Becky, I would say Joel's answer, but by Friday, since that will add 2 extra days for the food to spoil. So it's Joel's answer. Joel's answer again, just to remind you, is any food left in the refrigerator will be discarded by at the end of each day. So it'd be 3 days, roughly.
So you just make sure to give us the numbers so we can vote for those things,
so
right?
So that's the first 3, and Becky's is number 4. And let me see. And Bika's is number 5, which is don't leave the office without your half-eaten snack. Day 2, it is gone. And Bika number 6, no food to be left for the weekend.
Great.
Oh,
So,
numbers. Well, Mike's. I skipped my own. Mike's number 7. Pick an expiration date to discard your food or box.
great. So that's 1 through 7. So if you would just enter into the chat one of those numbers, and then enter it into the chat again, your second choice by number. And then Joe will do a quick scan of it, a quick tabulation, and we'll come up with the one that gets the most votes to consider first. Let the voting begin.
So it's looking like 7 and 3.
And which one has the most votes between those 2?
7 has the most votes.
7 has the most votes.
And
Okay.
7 was pick an expiration date to discard your food or box. And that was Mike's.
Okay, terrific. So that's the one we're gonna work with. Pick an expiration date and write it on your. We assume that you're not writing it on the food itself, but you're writing it on some container. So you're not actually writing it on the sandwich, you're writing it on the bag that the sandwich is in. Is everybody clear on the idea? Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to be in 2 breakout groups, and Joe will join one and I'll join the other. And we're going to practice something called radical pro-con, where one group will be outrageously brainstorming the pros. Why this is a fantastic idea. This is one of the best ideas in the history of ideas. It will not only solve this problem, it'll generate greater benefits, including whatever, and should be experimented with as soon as possible. The other group will be cons. Why this is a terrible idea, one of the worst ideas in the history of ideas. It not only won't solve the problem, it'll generate even more problems, including A, B, C, and it should be discarded immediately. So that's your job. In one group, you'll be the pros group, and it's a fantastic idea. And the other, you'll be the cons group, and why it's a terrible idea. And Joe and I will be in the group with you. And after you've kind of done this for a few minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes or whatever, then there will be one more thing we'll ask you to do and then come back. Now, before you begin that outrageous pros or cons brainstorming, there needs to be one person that would volunteer, or that you all would somehow select, who will be quickly reporting your list when we come back to the full group, because we need to have you report it. And so just make sure that person knows that that's what they're going to be doing, so that they can take notes on either the pros or the cons. Make sense? So this will be we'll do this quick. It's just an exercise. And
so how many minutes shall we figure for this?
I don't think we need more than 10.
Okay, so in the last 5, we'll
maybe the last 4
Okay.
for the second part. So
Okay.
maybe 6 and 4, or 7, even 7 and 3, but however that. But I definitely don't think we need more than about 10 minutes.
Okay, so we'll do 10 minutes. And I'll set up the breakup rows.
All right.
Okay. And I'll see everybody back. Let me just make sure I have my timer going. And,
Great.
In 10. Make sure everybody has the.
So Joe, why don't you do pros and I'll do cons?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds great.
Yeah. So I'm gonna share the screen here, and you'll see the instructions, and then I'm gonna take the screen away so we can all see each other, and we'll do the report out. Would that make sense, Joe?
That makes sense.
Okay, good. So we'll do Joe. Your group had the pros first of all. So you all will do the pros, and then the group I was with will do the cons, and then I wrote this incorrectly. So the secondary pros. Oh yeah. So then the cons group then did pros. So their second function was pros. So they'll add pros, and then the pros team had cons as their secondary cons, and so they'll add some cons. And then we'll talk a little bit about next steps will be, and what are some of the benefits of this process. And if we get confused along the way, we'll just make sure everybody takes their turn. So, so we'll hear from the pros group first. Who is your reporter, Joe?
Well, it was Mike. Mike, do you want to give it a shot, or I can do it if you wish?
We were supposed to do it, but you took the notes. Do you want to give them to me? So I'll do it.
Yeah, I can do it. I can go ahead and do it. I think that with this particular, one of the pros that we had come up with is that a date is actually making the decision versus a rule. Thus, you're not necessarily wasting food based on, say, if an arbitrary day. So it's going to be 2 days or 3 days that we're going to be throwing away food. Well, there's food that lasts past 3 days, and therefore, it makes no sense to throw away good food. So that would happen if you had a hard and fast rule. Another one is that the individual's judgment is actually, something of a trust, that you're trusting their judgment to make, a good decision. That could be both a pro and a con, depending on the individual. However, I do think it is a pro ultimately. that you're not, again, you don't have a hard and fast rule. You're actually just, you're entrusting the employees to make some decisions. Then, Mike also made the point that we're nudging people into responsibility as well as a pro, which is actually an interesting thing in and of itself, because you could start to see how people's behaviors, actually maybe manifest themselves in different ways. And one of the other ones was, as I'd already mentioned, is there's less waste. Again, you're actually not wasting good food. So should we
Great.
go through the cons? Or?
No. You're just
Okay.
doing your pros. Okay, Becky. So the cons.
Okay, so we have inefficient follow through. Who is going to be responsible for checking the dates? And if someone defaults, well, is it okay for other people to throw it out? And if so, it's like, will there be a designated person to do that? There might be confusion with the dates or like inconsistencies. Perhaps people will get confused with dating as an expiration date or the date they brought it in. There's also no penalty for non-compliance. So it'll just stay there, or other people have to check for things to be thrown out. And then poor judgment. So if the food spoils way before the date it was written, it's kind of like it would be not cool to throw it out.
Great. Okay. So then, Becky, why don't you share the pros, and then we'll come to the cons of the other group as well.
Okay, so the interesting thing that Joe had brought up was the responsibility. So treat people as responsible adults. That was another pro that overlapped. The flexibility and choice making is left up to the person, and it's because the person makes that choice of the date, there's a sense of fairness. If that date is passed, someone else can throw it out and they can't complain about it because it was set by them.
Great. Okay, Joe.
Well, interestingly enough, we got into a discussion about the founding fathers so we got a little bit sidetracked, but the main principle being that we talked about the responsibility of the individual. In this case, that could be a negative, that a rule would actually be beneficial in the sense that it would ensure a certain amount of order in ensuring that the food would not be wasted. That was the main one that we talked about. But yeah, the whole, we got into the freedom and responsibility, and John Locke and Mike kind of had us going in the founding fathers. So I didn't see the correlation until later, but that was the main one. That was the main con that we could come up with.
Yeah, it's a little known fact that Locke comprehensively addressed this problem, actually. But in writing that never became famous, he was really looking at the office refrigerator as a test for his ideas. When Joel said, sort of, from the gut, you're treating people like responsible adults, whether it's warranted or not. And but then the other side here, so who's going to throw it away? Who's going to be the person to do that? And is that going to revolve? And will then those people actually be in the office, and are they going to do it? And if there's someone misunderstanding, are they taking the blame? What if it does rot before the date that they put on there? What if they were kind of game the system and putting in a date that was too late? Anyway, Julie, did you have something that you wanted to say there as well?
Wouldn't like the values of the business come into play, and do you value cleanliness over not wasting things? And depends on your values on how you might make the rules.
Yeah. I would definitely think you would want to put the scientific experiments on a different shelf than the bags with people's food, because that would be a sad thing to confuse them. And so, okay. So obviously, if we were doing this together, then we'd take more ideas and do pros and cons and see what we could come up with, and either discard things or decide to try more than one at a time, out, whatever we tried to do. Now, what do you see as just possible advantages of this sort of radical pro-con applied to people's ideas regarding how to resolve what might be a difficult challenge? Hey, Becky.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of power to doing this when it's occurring in an iterative fashion, because your first pitch, it tends to always be like a simplified version. And as you're looking at both sides, you can account for the nuances and the edge cases, and be able to customize additional rules. If this, then this; if this, then that. So I think that's like a huge benefit.
Mm-hmm. Great. Who's next? Who's next there in the chat, Joe?
I just have Becky.
Oh, okay. Anybody else?
Ambika.
Hey, Ambika.
Hi. So, so much depends also on the kind of thing you're trying to accomplish and what ideas can be shared and shared for collaboration, and some that can't. And I speak particularly for example, you want to make a film. It is a collaborative art, absolutely. But if somebody wants to change your story, then that's a problem.
Right.
So in some cases, yes, when you're running an organization, everybody has a role to play. And it's great to get feedback from others on what will work and what won't, or what will be a better idea. And then you test it. But you can't test it when you're shooting a film, and you waste a lot of film goes and time and all of that stuff.
Sure.
So in some cases, yes. You can even work on a story together, but often story writers don't want somebody to tell their story for them because
Sure.
it changes. So it depends on what you are collaborating on. I know there's an organization called Presencing Institute and ULab Theory, and they're big on collaborating. And I'd spent some time with them. And when the original idea is no longer there, where are you?
Right.
Because each unique flame must also be present in what you create.
Right.
So
and Bika, one of the questions that you raised there, I was actually going to come to, but if you don't mind, I'll sort of jump on it. So, what a radical pro-con orientation does not do, it doesn't say how the decision is going to be made. So, for example, there could be one person, having positional authority, and they're going to make the decision. But this is a way of getting them feedback from everybody's vantage point. And it can be, when you do it a few times, you can imagine you can do it pretty quickly. And when it becomes part of the culture, it's a quick way for anybody who's got an idea in almost any endeavor to escape groupthink, and especially to escape the really unfortunate orientation that we often get locked into, where one person has to be the presenter of an idea, and then other people are going to endorse or critique it. And that person gets defensive and they have to defend it. And then other people are a little bit anxious about being candid with regard to their critique because they don't want the person to feel disrespected. And then what if the person whose idea it was is the boss? And are we going to actually take on the boss? Like, is that okay? And so what this does is it very quickly becomes a true meritocracy of ideas, where you get the chance to freely evaluate everything. And really, when you get right down to it, why would anybody ever want to do anything that couldn't stand up to this level of rigor? And might we be able to avoid some number of unintended consequences or things that we didn't see? So, but it doesn't require the person who it doesn't say, well, maybe we're going to decide this by majority vote, or maybe we're going to decide it by consensus, or maybe it has to be a unanimous decision, or whatever it is. It definitely does not require one person who, for whatever reason, is going to keep the authority to make the decision. It doesn't require that they give that up.
Right.
And anyway, so I'll stop there.
That is good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Bika, you had something?
Well, the whole idea of shared governance. So here's a group of people, and you want to give them a sense of power. So you have them do administrative work when that's not their job. So you make them feel important, but really it's not, because these guys are still going to decide everything. And this is typically what happens in educational institutions. So these guys make mega bucks, and the state gives money for these guys. It doesn't get here. But what is shared governance? So there's all this double speak that's happening in institutions, and it's a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So this is really just, this is a little step in the process.
Yeah.
It doesn't address those bigger issues, but it's a little step that invites and then sets as a norm really candid creativity as well as critical thought, and distributes it throughout an entire team. And that alone is a little step forward in input and feedback. Anybody else have any
Julie.
thoughts? Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was just going to say I've done like operations manuals and things like that, and some of them are like being revised and revised. And by getting the cons up front, it enables clarity of what's expected and this is how it works, and prevents problems that just happen along the way and having due to unclarity.
I actually engaged two people at one point to write a new employee handbook, new statement of HR, policies and procedures. And I thought, okay, these people do it for a living. And I thought maybe it'll take a month, maybe two. It took 9 months to do it. And I was just amazed at the level of misunderstanding and
Right.
competition of ideas.
Problems happen when people drop the ball, and that's because a step is left out on who was supposed to do what.
Right. Like, how are we going to decide who's going to throw this food away at the end of the week, given the dates? Whose job was it going to be to do that? And will it float? If so, are you signing up for it, or how's that going to work? So you just never really know exactly. These things can be a little bit more complicated than you might imagine. Anyway, any other thoughts with regard to radical pro-con?
Ambika, go
I'm
ahead.
just, no, not the pro-con, but the DIE. These things always make me laugh because it's such buzzwords. Diversity, inclusion, equity.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre. You're actually setting people apart.
And so, in a lot of ways, collaborating takes time. You've got to have time to do it. And it is, but in the end, co-creating is one way through that. The challenge is there.
Julie. Yeah.
So radical cons can help preventative problems by encouraging clarity, and radical pros could encourage visionary thinking in the groups.
It actually does. In fact, Julie, almost every time I've done this with folks regarding particularly complicated things, what's interesting, most fascinating to me is that what we think we're trying to achieve actually changes. So it turns out to be more than just an evaluation of strategies and tactics to achieve it. Our own understanding of what it is we're trying to achieve, as well as then the ways to achieve it, generally evolves, which is even more surprising sometimes. So, okay, well, let's go back. Let's come back to I'm going to share the screen again. Thank you all for doing that.
Thank you.
It's just a great little, it's a great little tool. I want to come to this book, Leading Change by John Kotter. And he wrote it as Leading Change. And then when it was around for about 15, 20 years, and again, endorsed by Harvard Business Review as still one of the very best books they'd ever published on leading change, he collaborated with somebody in writing it as a fable of penguins who are on an iceberg that is melting. And it's a really fun little story, but it illustrates all of the steps here that I'm about to share with you. And I've given Our Iceberg is Melting away to thousands of people in leadership programs I've done over the years. And at the end of the book, they outline the steps. And then you can see all the roles played and all the dialogue and everything that happened in the fable. But it's fun. So the steps were these. First of all, this is the most famous one, to create a sense of urgency. So everybody really, sees and feels the need to change, that they get it, that this is not, this is not something we can wait on. This is something we really have to address. And then next, to pull together sort of, in some ways, it could be early adopters, it could be folks who are strong informal leaders, as well as people who are in various positions, but sort of a guiding team, sort of a core group. And to your point, folks who have diverse perspectives with regard to not only the subject, but also within the organization itself, and who are credible, that people really do trust. And third, that guiding team really needs to do what we were doing there, to lay out, okay, what's our vision for what we're trying to create, and what does it mean achieving, and why? What benefits or experience or outcome are we looking to generate? And then what's our theory for that? If we do this, then that will happen. And what might be our specific approaches that then, just as we did, one might apply this kind of radical pro-con evaluation. And then next, that you could have had this conversation, this as part of the drafting of the Constitution, where in 1780, they got together in Philadelphia and they found, something they could agree to, and they all signed it, but then they had to go back and sell it to the state legislatures and the governors of the states. And so this ability to communicate and really attract early adopters who can then be effective in communicating this vision and the approach, and getting input as well, and feedback. And then really making sure that you remove all barriers to action and reflection. Really, you got to make sure that because to Ambika's early point, there are things that will be being done differently, things that will need to be in a way unlearned or lost in order to be able to do these new things. Pardon the sports analogy, but in baseball, they always say you can't steal second base without leaving first. And so you got to make sure that people feel empowered and authorized and supported, invited to actually do these new things. And then it's essential that you create some visible and unambiguous short-term wins If it goes on a long time and it doesn't look like anything's actually being achieved, then the enthusiasm for this will wane and it will die. It won't happen. So making sure that you really have programmed in here the ability to accomplish some visible and clear results that you can say, okay, you know, it didn't change everything, but it actually is making some progress. But there's often a temptation, and I've seen this myself, that once those short-term wins happen, folks who were sort of resisting it all along, a little bit disingenuously say, okay, problem solved, right? We're good. Good job, everybody. All right. You know, treating those early, visible, and unambiguous successes as if they actually solved the change that you're trying to achieve. And so don't let up. Know that this is going to happen and that there is still this need to co-create and communicate a compelling vision and empower action and engage in reflection so that you're constantly learning and can keep moving forward together. And it's really not until the new behaviors have become strong and somewhat automatic that you can say, okay, we've created a new culture around this, and whatever that might be, and as well as the systems that support and are aligned with that culture. So those are his 8 points: a sense of urgency, a guiding team, the change vision and strategy, communicate clearly, empower people to act and produce short-term wins, don't let up when they are achieved, and make sure that you're really in there for the long term to create a new culture so that anybody who comes in there later after you're gone and others understand this is the way that we do things here, which of course is the culture question.
Can I ask, just bring up a really quick point?
Yeah.
Jeff, you know, I read, you know, Kotter's 8 points, and the first 3, from what I understood, were like creating a culture of change.
Right.
And then the second 3 are essentially enabling the organization.
Right.
And then the last 2 are actually about sustainment.
Yes.
Is that a correct way to
That
look at it?
that is exactly right.
Okay.
That's exactly what he does.
Yeah, I think that's, if you break it down to those 3 categories,
Yeah.
you can see them very clearly.
That's exactly right.
Which one of those, you know, where one is everything is cultural, and the others that you have that, you know, basically where you have 4, like 4, 5, and 6, you're enabling
Right.
the organization. And then 7 and 8 are essentially the implementation and the actions that you're taking.
Right.
So
Just
you start
momentum
to-
and keep moving forward. Don't assume you're done until you actually are, which is longer than most people think it'll take.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's fairly simple. You know, in a way it's simplistic, but it is it's an interesting guide, and the our iceberg is melting. I promise you, is an amusing but instructive fable. So I also want to come back here to you know, what really makes this possible to do is within Stephen M. Covey's book, The Speed of Trust, where he says that it's remarkable how fast things can happen and how fast change can happen when people have a high degree of trust of each other. And it's remarkable how difficult it is and how slow it is and how often nothing can happen when trust is low. But he gives this sort of expanded definition of trust. It's not just kind of belief in the trustworthiness in a sense of honor or the character of the other folks. That's essential. It's absolutely essential. But it's more than that as well. That we actually believe in each other's competence to do the kinds of things that we're being required to do. And you remember he said, I trust my wife's honor and that she'll do the right thing, but I wouldn't trust her to do brain surgeon on me because she's not a brain surgeon. And if I need so the people we need to manage finance, the people we need to handle technology, the people we need to think about design of whatever services or products we're about, or systems, in the case, for elections, or whatever it is, that we need folks who have some level of competence with regard to that, demonstrated competence. And then, of course, the capacity, that they've got the time, they've got the health, they've got the, the resources that they need in order to be able to apply that competence. And then, because these things are tough, they're always tough, because there are things to be given up in order to make progress on substantial change, that the courage to actually stand up to those who will resist or oppose it and really listen and really take those things into account. But tough decisions will have to be made in almost every difficult challenge. And then that all of us sort of expect and hold ourselves and each other accountable to consistently do these things. It's not a one-off. It's not where somebody steps up and acts in a way they've never done before. It really is required that you can trust that people will consistently do those kinds of things. And so folks in leadership roles, when one is interviewing folks for those kinds of things, as well as supporting them and holding them accountable, those are the kinds of things that are essential. And this book that Stephen M. Covey wrote is really useful in that regard. So we come back to this question: how can mature leadership help us to authentically, ethically, inclusively, creatively, and productively keep moving forward? Remember, that's been our question every step along the way here. And this diagram that you've seen before, that centered us on the purpose, and each of us as stewards of the assets to help an entity achieve its mission with the values and virtues and principles that we agree upon, and folks in leadership roles and all individuals in relationship with each other, and that we really are learning together, I think is a very powerful way to conceive of what allows us and helps us to keep moving forward together. I actually think it's a key part of trust, when we say we will keep learning together, and we'll fix things that go wrong, and we'll respond to things that change, and we'll drop things that are not working, and we'll reinvent together. When you have that kind of trust, you can actually make decisions, and everybody wholeheartedly go into it and give every option that seems really great a chance to succeed. So what I invite you to do from this evening's session is to pick out one idea that you'd like to remember, that you might wish to remember to say privately to yourself, or share with another person, or maybe your dog, or try using with others, but probably not your cat, because they really don't listen. And or teach someone, maybe but probably not your kids, because they don't want to hear it. But that you might employ to help preserve and enhance the quality of life here on this planet now and for the foreseeable future, for yourself and others, for those you know and those you've not yet met. What's one idea that you might want to remember? And my experience is when we do this and we say it out loud, there's a much bigger chance that we might actually remember it and may even do it.
Folks, go ahead and type exclamation point in the chat.
What comes to mind?
Julie.
I'm gonna be a steward of learning what I can about people more, to find their gifts, and just to be more open and listening.
That's terrific. Thank you, Julie.
Lisa.
Empower others to act.
Yeah. You know, Julie, that's one of the 5 principles in the book, The Leadership Challenge, where you talked about model the way and enable and, empower others to act, and encourage the heart and inspire a shared vision. It's a really great book, and it's the one that we started with in the Leadership Challenge.
I mean, Becky has a great answer here in the chat, that a leader worth following is one who serves his followers. That's
Yeah.
really, and that I think that actually really speaks to the video that we actually had witnessed, the idea that a leader is a follower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and remarkably often, serving followers means following them.
Yes, that's exactly it.
So,
exactly.
In fact, when I was just starting on this journey a couple decades ago, in the last session, people gave me a hat that actually had two bills on it, and it said, "I'm their leader. Which way did they go?"
So I have Julie and then Craig.
Oh, I was just going to say that I see that maybe a baby step I could take towards being totally courageous is to be the first follower.
Yeah. And that conversation, Mbika and Becky, that you all were having right at the start there, can you see how that was a first follower, orientation, where one person shares something and somebody else says, you know what, I'd love to join you in that. And that there's power, there's huge leadership power in deciding, in being very intentional about following others, because you end up as partners in the end anyway.
So we have Craig and Mbika.
Yeah, I got the answer to my question. Basically, we're supposed to be compassionate followers to be the leader. And now I see why they followed me, because I was always willing to do that which I asked them to do. I didn't have to, because they were happy to do it.
Well, this proverb, or this axiom, is said so often that, like anything, it sort of loses its meaning after a while. But be the change you want to see in the world, from Gandhi, actually is a remarkably powerful axiom, and for so many reasons.
To be the example of a possibility.
Mbika.
Thank you, Craig.
Okay, what do I plan to do? Just laugh a lot, write my poetry, say hello, and just be happy and be authentic. And how many of you are willing to get up right now and dance?
I'll second that.
Okay, here's the music. Come on, everyone. Everybody get up. I'm not even asking you to do any belly dancing. Okay, just
we're dancing in New York.
Yes, we are. All over the world.
And in Washington.
got the whole country dancing. And we can see you. Come on.
We did.
I often play this and just
Cool.
dance,
Thank you, Mbika.
You want it.
Any other thoughts or things that struck you that you might want to remember?
Forget everything, be empty.
Yeah. I love that.
Just empty out. It's so easy to carry stuff and nonsense when something triggers. we could take 1 second and neutralize it.
Mhm.
Just bring it to neutral and let it be, because then we fester and we create more problems, and then that cords in our bodies and tissue, and then if it's in the neck, it goes into the knees or something or the other. So why not just keep things simple and delightful and not be triggered with little things? It's better to not have a story than to have a sob story often.
How about there's a downside to being right, and not being right opens you up to learning.
That's a great point. Jyoti.
Jyoti?
Yeah, I've noticed in the group when there is one person who's very noisy, complaining and what have you, if you give them a space and you tell them, be quiet, everybody, let the person talk, they become very cooperative and very compliant. All they were looking was for attention. And you have to understand there are some people who will seek attention in negative ways. So why not just give them attention so that they will be quiet and then they will cooperate?
Or maybe they've noticed something occasionally, that none of the rest of us had noticed, and
That's the other thing,
they really,
yes.
they really want to be able to contribute.
Yeah, but there are some who just want to be heard. They want to
That's
hear their
true, too.
voice. They want to be heard. So just give them a little chance and they'll be happy and then they'll cooperate. It's very simple.
Great. Thank you, Jyoti.
Thank you.
I have to leave. Thank you very
Okay.
much. But Jeff, I just want you to know, on a serious note, I've learned not to put my lunch in the fridge where Mike puts his experiments. Good night, everyone.
Or at least on a different shelf.
For sure.
That is wisdom.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
Jeff.
much.
This was a
I
great,
think,
very
this
good
is
contribution.
I just want to say, thank you, Jeff. I mean, one thing that I heard, this evening that I'm definitely taking away from it is, and it's been reiterated in other discussions with Russell Ackoff that we talked about, is the importance of listening to everyone. And that's a really important lesson, that because you never know where the solution is going to come from. So that is and this series has been fantastic. One that has, that we can come back to, and it's contributed so much to 52 Living Ideas. It filled the void of leadership that we weren't necessarily covering in detail. And so many people are going to benefit from this. So thank you, Jeff, for
Thanks, Joe.
your leadership, the time that you've put into this. And really, it's been an honor to be alongside you for these 8 sessions.
Thanks.
Is this it?
My screen has gone blank for some reason, but thank you so much and have good holidays, everything. God bless you.
I have just a little closing poem to
Yes.
offer you.
Yes.
I don't know if you can you all see the screen? Okay.
I can't see the screen. Something has gone wrong.
Okay. It's called Human Family by Maya Angelou. So here's the poem. I note the obvious differences in the human family. Some of us are serious. Some thrive on comedy. Some declare their lives are lived as true profundity, and others claim they really live the real reality. The variety of our skin tones can confuse bemused delight, brown and pink and beige and purple, tan and blue and white. I've sailed upon the 7 seas and stopped in every land. I've seen the wonders of the world, not yet one common man. I know 10,000 women called Jane and Mary Jane, but I've not seen any 2 who really were the same. Mirror twins are different, although their features jibe, and lovers think quite different thoughts while lying side by side. We love and lose in China, we weep on England's moors, and laugh and moan in Guinea, and thrive on Spanish shores. We seek success in Finland, are born and die in Maine. In minor ways, we differ. In major, we're the same. I note the obvious differences between each sort and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, then we are unalike. So thank you so much for it's been a privilege and a pleasure to seek to serve you all in this. And thanks so much for joining in.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. I want to
forward to
thank you so much for the sincerity with which you do everything.
Yes.
And live your life. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Ambika.
Yes,
Thank
the
you so much.
sincerity is appreciated. Thank you, everyone. And everyone have a wonderful holiday if I don't see you.
Absolutely.
And as always, we have, just check the website for all the announcements. We've got,
Is this the last one? There's no
this
more?
is the last one for the leadership. We've got a whole other set of series that are in the works right now.
Very nice.
So yeah,
And
we're working out the schedule for 2020.
You guys are beyond great. I'm
Thank
glad
you.
I stumbled in here.
Glad to have you, Craig. Glad to have you.
Joseph, I really like the way you run the groups that you facilitate. Seriously, it's
Thank
so
you.
much easier to just be there, instead of being all tense. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Ambika. And I enjoy when
Thank
you're
you
here.
so much, Joe.
No problem.
This could not have happened without you.
No problem.
And I really appreciate having you as a partner in this endeavor.
So it's been an honor. It really has. And I've learned so much in our conversations. So it's given me an opportunity to talk to Jeff outside of these meetups, which is, very, it's been a really, it's been a gift. So
All right.
thank you everyone. And maybe I'll see some of you at the next meetup, literally the next meetup.
Absolutely.
Like literally in the next 5 minutes.
Take care.
All right.
Next 5 minutes.
Okay.